All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today's deep dive takes us right to the core of government IT.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
We're talking the Defense Information Systems Agency, DISA, and their new program, ModEL.
Modernization, engineering, lifecycle refresh. Quite a mouthful.
Definitely rolls off the tongue.
But it's really fascinating. It's not just about swapping out old computers.
Yeah,
This is about systems that the entire Department of Defense rise on.
it's a huge deal.
Absolutely massive.
Our source material, by the way, comes straight from a pre-solicitation conference held on December 5th, 2024.
Oh, juicy stuff.
Super juicy. And by the end of this deep dive, we're not just going to know what ModEL is. We're going to really grasp how DISA secures the net and defends our nation. Because, their motto is secure the net, defend the nation.
What's really striking is the sheer reach of DISA. We're talking supporting every branch of the military, numerous government agencies, all the way to the White House.
It's mind-blowing.
They have this visual in the source material, the global footprint, that just lays it all out.
I was looking at that.
Data centers, network operations centers, field offices all over the globe really brings home how interconnected defense is these days.
Absolutely. And within DISA, there's a division called J6C4, which is a spearheading model.
Right. The document mentions that on an average day, they handle like a third of all DoD phone lines.
That's insane.
That's just a fraction of what J6 does. They're also developing .NET.
Okay, .NET. So what is that?
.NET is basically DISA's vision for a super secure, modern, and efficient network that connects, well, basically every corner of the Department of Defense.
Like a massive network overhaul.
Exactly. One of the big goals is to break down those silos that exist between different agencies, because it just makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to say silos create all kinds of problems.
Absolutely. Bottlenecks, security risks, the whole 9 yards. With better communication and collaboration, things run smoother and responses are quicker when it matters.
Right, because in a crisis, those seconds count.
You got it. .NET also aims to standardize service desks across the entire DoD.
Oh, that makes sense. So no matter where you are, you have the same user experience.
Exactly. Consistent, user-friendly, and of course a huge emphasis on cybersecurity.
Got to bolster those defenses.
Across the board. The source material talks about how .NET promises a better user experience, tighter cybersecurity, and big cost savings, by consolidating hardware and software purchases.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, it's ambitious, for sure. Achieving all this will take a massive effort, and that's where ModEL steps in.
Okay, so let's talk ModEL. What's the big deal with this program, and how does it all tie into .NET?
ModEL is basically the engine that's going to turn the .NET vision into a reality. It's a huge program designed to tackle all those complex issues around modernizing DoD's IT infrastructure.
Making sure it's secure, reliable, and, well, ready for whatever's next.
Precisely.
The source material outlines 4 key task areas within ModEL: program management, solutions development, customer engineering projects, and telecom and network professional services.
Right. It's comprehensive.
Can you give us a quick rundown of what each of these areas actually does?
Sure. So program management is basically overseeing the whole shebang. Keeping everything on track, within budget, meeting objectives. Solutions development is all about, designing and implementing those technical solutions that'll make .NET a reality.
Right, and that means things like...
migrating to IPv6, deploying zero-trust security architectures.
Which is, just to clarify, basically verifying every user and every device before granting access.
Exactly. No more trusting blindly. And then you've got modernizing ComSec, communications security to protect sensitive information.
Some serious high-level stuff right there. But, are all projects within ModEL focused on these big infrastructure changes?
Not necessarily. They actually distinguish between procurement-funded projects, which are the big ones funded directly by DISA, and customer-funded projects.
Oh, so those are more tailored to individual needs.
Right. Specific needs of different DoD agencies or departments.
So ModEL has the flexibility to handle both the big picture of .NET and the more specific niche requirements within the DoD.
Exactly. Recognizing that one size doesn't fit all when you're dealing with an organization as vast and diverse as the DoD.
Makes sense. Now, to roll out a program as massive and complex as ModEL, DISA is using a pretty interesting approach.
Yeah, I was intrigued by this too. Contractor team arrangements, or CTAs.
What exactly are CTAs, and why are they so crucial to ModEL's success?
Instead of giving one giant contract to a single company, DISA is bringing together teams of contractors, each with their own specializations.
Kind of like, when you build a house, you need different experts for different jobs.
Exactly. You've got your plumbers, electricians, carpenters, all working together. And here, you've got different contractors, each bringing their own expertise to the table.
So it's about leveraging a wider pool of talent, getting that cross-collaboration between contractors.
Absolutely. And it has a bunch of advantages. You tap into a wider range of expertise, you get more competition, which drives innovation, and hopefully better value for the government.
And it opens doors for smaller businesses to get involved too, right?
Exactly. Now, how do these teams get chosen?
And how do they actually get to work? That's where the call order process comes in.
Right. The source material has a visual called Anticipated Call Order Process Flow that outlines the process. Essentially, DISA issues call orders under the MA-BPA, which stands for Blanket Purchase Agreement, whenever they have a specific need for services.
So it's not like they just hand the CTAs a giant to-do list and say, get to it.
Nope, it's much more dynamic,
Yeah.
allows DISA to adapt to, evolving needs and priorities.
So let's say a call order comes in for migrating a specific system to IPv6 or deploying zero trust security in a particular network.
Right. Then the CTA lead, who acts as the main point of contact with the government, gets the call order outlining the tasks and requirements. Well, then the CTA, as a team, decides how to best tackle the project, utilizing each member's unique skills. The source material emphasizes equal workload distribution and maximizing small business participation.
So they're not just focused on mission success, they're also thinking about opportunity.
Absolutely. They're looking for teams that are committed to these values, which is something potential bidders should keep in mind.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from DISA's global operations to ModEL's innovative approach and the use of these CTAs. Before we move on, I'd love to hear what's caught your attention so far. What are you finding most interesting about this deep dive? Think about it, because next, we're going to tackle the challenges and opportunities presented by this massive IT modernization effort, not just for DISA and the DoD, but for the nation as a whole. And we're back digging deeper into DISA and their ambitious ModEL program. It's clear this program is a big step, way beyond just a simple tech refresh. It's like a complete change in how the Department of Defense thinks about their IT infrastructure.
Absolutely. And any shift this big, well, it's going to come with some challenges, right?
For sure. What do you see as the biggest hurdles for DISA as they try to implement ModEL?
I think one of the biggest has got to be the sheer scale of it all. The DoD's IT ecosystem is just massive, so complex.
Yeah, remember that global footprint visual we talked about earlier? Networks, systems, and applications that cover the entire globe, supporting millions of users. It's mind-boggling.
And then you've got the constant threat of cyber attacks.
Oh, right, because the DoD is a prime target. I mean, hackers in other countries are always trying to steal information or disrupt military operations.
The stakes are incredibly high.
So how does ModEL handle these cybersecurity worries? You mentioned zero trust security architectures before. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Sure. Zero Trust is a security framework built on the idea that you never trust anything automatically. You always verify.
So you're constantly checking and double-checking.
Exactly. No user or device gets a free pass, even if they're already within the DoD's network. Every single access request is scrutinized, no matter where it's coming from.
So even someone with top-level security clearance would still need to go through all these checks.
You got it. It's all about minimizing the chance of someone getting in where they shouldn't be, even if they seem trustworthy. Especially important with cyber threats getting more and more advanced.
Absolutely. Now, the source material also mentions migrating to the cloud as a big part of ModEL. Where does that fit in?
Well, moving DoD applications and data to the cloud, it has a lot of advantages.
Makes things more flexible, you can scale things up or down easier, and you can save money, right?
Exactly. But it also comes with its own security challenges that DISA has to be really careful about.
So it's not just a matter of saying, okay, everybody move to the cloud, and it's done.
Oh, no, not at all.
Mm.
DISA has to be super careful. They need to evaluate cloud providers, put strong security measures in place, and make sure that sensitive data stays protected throughout the whole process.
Sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is. They need to get all the benefits of cloud technology without compromising on security.
And for all of this to work, you're going to need a lot of skilled people, not just within DISA, but also among those contractor teams working on ModEL.
Absolutely. Getting and keeping talented people, especially in the cybersecurity field, that's a major challenge for DISA.
Yeah, everyone knows the government often can't match the salaries and benefits offered by private companies. So how can DISA convince the best and brightest to come work on these critical projects?
Well, salary is definitely a factor, But DISA has something unique to offer. The chance to work on some of the most important, most challenging IT projects in the entire world.
There's a certain appeal to contributing to national security.
For a lot of professionals, that's a huge motivator. And remember, the source material's emphasis on small businesses being involved in ModEL.
Right, that was interesting.
DISA is committed to awarding contracts to a diverse group of businesses, not just the big players. They want small businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses.
It's about creating a level playing field, right? Giving those businesses a shot at contributing to these vital initiatives.
Exactly. It benefits everyone in the end. DISA gets to tap into a wider range of talent and fresh ideas, and these smaller businesses gain valuable experience working on these big government projects.
It's great to see DISA focusing on both the mission and creating opportunities. So it's clear that ModEL is not just about technology, it's about people, partnerships, and shaping the future of national security in this rapidly changing digital world. I'm curious, as we explore all this, what are your thoughts on the long-term impacts? What kind of ripple effects do you think ModEL might have?
That's a great question. What's happening with ModEL gives us a glimpse into the future of IT modernization, not just for the DoD, but for any organization, really.
So what DISA is doing could have implications way beyond national defense.
Absolutely. As we dive into the specifics of how ModEL is being put into action in our next segment, I want you to think about this. How could these strategies and approaches be applied to other organizations, both public and private?
That's a thought-provoking question, and we'll continue to explore it as we unpack those specifics. Stay tuned. And we're back for the final stretch of our deep dive into DISA's ModEL program. It's a really impressive initiative, modernizing the Department of Defense's IT infrastructure in a big way.
Yeah, and we've seen it's not just about getting new hardware and software. It's building a whole IT ecosystem that's more secure, efficient, and able to adapt to the military's needs.
For me, one of the coolest things about ModEL is how DISA is approaching it with those contractor team arrangements, the CTAs.
Yeah, the CTAs, they're a big change from how the government usually does contracts. Instead of one big company getting everything, DISA is putting together teams of specialists to work on specific projects.
And that lets DISA draw on a wider range of expertise, which means more competition and more innovation. What really stood out to you about these CTAs in the source material?
One thing that caught my eye was the CTAs have privity of contract with the government. So basically, they're all directly accountable to DISA.
That's important. It means everyone on the team is invested in making the project a success.
Exactly. And the source material also says the CTA lead is the main point of contact with the government.
So it's like having a dedicated project manager for each CPA, making communication and decision-making smoother.
You got it. One point of contact keeps things simple. Another interesting thing was the emphasis on making sure the workload is distributed evenly among CTA members.
It shows that DISA is serious about giving every team member, no matter how big or small, a fair chance to contribute.
Right, and that ties back to their commitment to getting small businesses involved, which we talked about before. By encouraging these CTAs with small businesses, women-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses, DISA is creating a more diverse group of contractors.
It's great to see DISA thinking about both the mission and making sure everyone has opportunities.
It's a smart move. Benefits everybody.
You know, when I first started reading through these ModEL documents, I have to admit, it was a bit overwhelming. These government documents, they can be tough to get through.
Oh, I hear you. So much information, so much jargon. But once you start digging in, it's a really fascinating story.
It's the story of how the DoD is adapting to this digital age, embracing new technologies, and finding innovative ways to stay ahead of the game.
And the role contractors play in all of this is crucial.
What I find really interesting is that this story is still unfolding. The ModEL program is just getting started, and it's going to be so interesting to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder how this use of CTAs will affect government contracting in general.
And what lessons learned from ModEL will shape the future of IT modernization, not just for the DoD, but for other organizations too.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'll leave you with this thought. Things are changing so fast in the world of technology, and the threats, they're constantly evolving. What do you think are the biggest challenges and opportunities facing DISA and the ModEL program in the future?
How can they make sure that the DoD's IT infrastructure stays secure, adaptable, and ready to support their mission, whatever the future throws at them? It's something to think about, and I encourage you to keep learning about this topic. In the world of IT, things never stand still.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into DISA and their ModEL program.
Until next time, stay curious.